able to impose the kind of pricing power that they were in the past. And I think the iPhone is still, you know, a big challenge to both of these businesses when it comes to the handset story. Hugh, you got a view?
The iPhone is, you know, the smartphone concept, you know, is clearly causing a disturbance with groups such as the BlackBerry producer RIM, the Canadian company. And, you know, again, when we get this heated debate about inflation, deflation, I think you've just passed on an anecdote whereby mobile phones, which are ubiquitous, their price is falling. So there's something in our everyday life, and it's getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, okay? And it's exposing too much surplus by the manufacturers who are having to contract, close factories, lay people off. That's the environment that I'm discussing with a debt deflation and a move to more savings. So it's not just a flight of fancy, it is actually happening in the mobile telephony market.
But that's the conundrum here, isn't it? Because I think we all acknowledge that in the real economy there are but still problems. There are clearly issues, and the unemployment numbers continue to tick up here, albeit at a slightly slower rate if you believe some of the latest data that we've had from the US and the UK. That being said, the asset markets are still responding to this injection of liquidity from the central banks and through these quantitative easing programs. And you just can't afford to ignore that as a factor that's driving up asset prices. Don't you have to float with that?
Go with the flow. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, well, basically.
There are times. I mean, sure, there are times when you go with the flow when you can see legitimacy in what people are thinking. But it's such a dichotomy. It's such a stark dichotomy, and you see it in physical markets in the real world versus the speculative markets in oil. People who trade oil, people whose businesses are. You don't understand this market. The only commercial return you can get from being in oil just now is just to store the blasted stuff, because there's so much speculative money coming in, and it's willing to be, the roll on oil kills you. You can't be long only in oil, yeah, because it's the nature of commodity curves destroys you. So there's an example. And of course, here we are, home foreclosures are at records. The recovery from people defaulting on their mortgages is never been lower. Unemployment is 10% in America, and if you include those on part-time or actively seeking, it's 17%. These are big issues, but at the present time the market has a myopic fascination for a rebuild in inventory from incredibly low levels. To take the debate forward, we will need more data points to establish, okay, once you have re-established your inventory level, what next? Because if there's no oomph, if you will, especially from the American household, then we've got to bring it back down again. And that could be painful.
Okay, Steve, you've got some more news.
Yeah,